Yo guys, welcome to the Blue Podcast. This is the Green Show today with me, Mackers and Tom. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you, buddy?
I'm pretty good. Pretty good. Been as always with these episodes, pretty good morning so far, even though it's 9 o'clock in the morning. Obviously, this is a spoiler review for Moon Knight episode 4, as I'm sure the title will explain. And as the thumbnail probably shows, an interesting end for sure. But before we get into that, we are an ambassador for the new app called LinkMe. It's an app that makes juggling social media accounts easier than ever. Make sure to download the app, make an account with our link down below, and check out our merch. That would be very much appreciated. Before we get into that interesting finish to an episode that I don't think anyone saw coming, we'll go through it chronologically and obviously give our thoughts and what we think's happening there. Obviously, we start off with Khonshu is trapped in the stone. What's it called? Ushabti, I think is what it's called.
I'll let you pronounce that from now on. Yeah.
I think they said Ushabti. I think, but I'm just gonna say I called it last week. Obviously, you unfortunately weren't there, but I called it last week that other gods have been disposed of, so to speak. And obviously, we saw that it's not just Khonshu on that wall; it's many others, which may indicate, as we thought, that maybe Osiris could be working with Arthur Harrow. I don't know what you think about that.
I hadn't really heard much about that, as you mentioned. I wasn't here last week, unfortunately, but yeah, I hadn't heard much about that. I did think it was very interesting to see that Khonshu was just sort of the next in a long line of sort of gods that have been cast aside. It'll be very interesting to see sort of how Mark/Stephen is able to get Khonshu freed and obviously re-become Moon Knight. Especially if all the other avatars have failed before to sort of reclaim their gods. Yeah, that'd be very interesting to see how that one pans out.
Yeah, it is very interesting. But yeah, why do you think there's so many gods have almost seemed to have fallen out? It's almost like maybe the original plan is possibly old fashioned and seem to be rebelling against it.
Well, I mean, definitely. You could say that it's almost hierarchical in terms of the gods. Like you've got that one sort of the group of 6 that we saw that were sort of deciding Khonshu's fate, and then you've got any other gods that might stray from the original path that are then sort of punished for what they've done. I mean, Khonshu sort of meddled in the affairs of Earth and he's punished. So you assume that's what's happened with the other gods before, and yeah, that's obviously not part of sort of that main group of gods, their sort of ideology and way of doing things.
Yeah, and does also beg a question. Obviously, Black Panther's god is part of the Ennead, and they also worship this lioness god. I don't know the name. I'm not that good, but it does obviously pose a question. Obviously, that though that god does influence humans, and obviously with Wakanda, quite a big influence with the purple herbs and stuff like that. Obviously, does pose a question if that god's involved with this Ennead, and because it is in the comics, and have they fallen out? Kind of like Khonshu, did he get expelled? We'll kind of jump over the majority of kind of like that middle, that first third, I'd say, because most of it's just them traveling to the dig site where everyone seems to have disappeared. And well, it kind of turns out that I think a lot of people have been killed by these sorcerers or whatever they are. We tried to have a little think before the podcast to try and figure out what it was, but me and Tom have no idea what the hell they are.
Yeah, that was very unexpected. I'll be honest. When I first saw the little blue guy jump down, I thought, oh, could this possibly be Amit? They've already freed her, and this is how she's taken her form. But obviously, that wasn't the case. I do think it's interesting. So they've been very vague and they've given us sort of no indication really as to who these people are. I mean, as you mentioned, they could be sorcerers. They did say that there were sorcerers in the past, and obviously we saw the victims lined up across the wall. So that's definitely a possibility. It sort of begs the question how they survived all these years, or are they sort of unnatural to the point of where they're not avatars and of any of the gods, but they're just sort of unnatural sorcerers. Maybe even links to Doctor Strange. Maybe that's perhaps just a stretch too far. But I assume they'll explain it was sort of in the next episode, since they're all still in the tomb at the moment.
Very true, very true. And obviously, whose tomb is it?
Alexander the Great.
Didn't see that one coming either.
I don't think anybody saw that one coming. That was quite unexpected. I mean, I'm not amazing with my ancient Egypt, so I saw like they were talking about the tomb, and I was thinking the only one that really springs to mind is like Tutankhamun, and but yeah, Alexander the Great. It's nice that they've done a long lost tomb. So obviously in the real world, we don't see the tomb, so it kind of gives them creative freedom to take it in any direction they want. And obviously, him being a former avatar of Amit is what they sort of imply. Is very interesting, actually, especially because he was in such a position of power, and now it's sort of devolved, and Arthur Harrow is this broken man that's now the avatar. It's interesting.
And obviously, as typical MCU TV shows seem to be, it wasn't Kang, it wasn't Mephisto, it wasn't anything like that. It was just a real life person from back in history. I think he was Macedonian who did have reign over Egypt and Greece at one point or another. So yeah, it is interesting. Obviously, putting the Ushabti in the mouth of Alexander the Great was an interesting move, just to kind of almost deface this long lost mummy and tomb instantaneously. You could tell Stephen didn't particularly enjoy the experience of doing that, but it is what it is. But obviously, that kind of escalates quite quickly. We find out obviously that Mark was there for Layla's father's death, and then kind of whilst this is all happening with Arthur Harrow. How do you think he seems to know all of this?
Arthur Harrow.
Yeah,
I think it's because of when he's like sort of testing Mark out, and he does it was Stephen at the time, wasn't it? And he did the sort of deciding Stephen's fate. I think he'll have received glimpses into maybe his past, and because he said he's a broken man, or he's in chaos or something like that at the time. So obviously he's seen glimpses into the past, and obviously I think that's just a portion of Amit's power, being able to sort of determine somebody's future based upon their past actions. I think that's how he's done it. I don't know if it's any more. I mean, that's pretty supernatural in of itself, but I don't know if it's anything more than just that one encounter that they had.
fair enough. Well, but the interesting bit, in my opinion, is also he seems to know a lot about Layla, kind of separate to Mark. So maybe there is a bit more to his power than he is letting on. So yeah, Stephen and Layla shouts at Stephen to the point where Mark obviously comes out of the body to explain what happened. I think we all knew this. Obviously, he was there. It's where he died as well. Because I think in the first episode we talk about how the merchant, like, what was it? The police was the second episode. The police said to Stephen that that Mark had like killed people in like an assassination kind of way, but obviously it turns out that it wasn't him. He stopped it. He ended up dying, but obviously due to Khonshu, he didn't die. So that is obviously kind of puts him in a sticky situation. Layla seems to blame him a lot for his father's death, even though kind of seems like it wasn't exactly his fault. But
well, we don't actually know for sure that it's not his fault. I mean, we've talked about in the past the sort of the third personality that's not revealed itself. I think we got a glimpse towards the end of the episode of another one of the tombs that was shaking just as Stephen's one was. So that could be the third personality. And potentially, if this third personality is prominent and has been for a while, that could have been the massacre that was not caused by Mark.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. So potentially he's done that, completely forgotten the whole experience, and just remembers his friend shooting him, because obviously his friend in that situation was the one defending everybody else. There's a early morning theory to be thought about.
Well, yeah, because we'll get on to kind of the whole end bit, but I did kind of question when he saw that sarcophagus that he almost purposefully ignored it, whereas the one with Stephen, he went straight to try and save. So that's a very interesting theory. It did make me question: does he know about the third personality? Obviously, it was hinted at in the last episode, but do you like that theory, Tom? Do you like that theory? Jake Lockley, I always forget his name. The Jake Lockley personality.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to that interesting?
Yeah, let's do. Yeah. my first thoughts on it were this is Purgatory. I mean, he's just been shot twice in an ancient Egyptian tomb. He fell into the water. We get a really weird scene where it really does make you question is everything we've just seen to this point just the imagination of a delusional man? I mean, everything points towards that, but then at the same time, everything, if you look at it from the perspective of, okay, we know that Moon Knight is real and everything that's happened so far is real, everything you see sort of just is sort of like a visualization of how broken Mark actually is, and it could be the Purgatory because everything that he's seen in the real life, he's projecting onto this this made up world. Even Harrow, well, the psychiatrist played by Ethan Hawke, and obviously is off Harrow, even alludes to it, saying that this isn't sort of like the real world, this is like the material world. He then goes on to talk about a pen being different, like, so to a dog, it's a chew toy, for instance, which sort of suggests that, oh yeah, he is just referring to it being like, you just got to look everything from a different context and it becomes real. But I think this is Purgatory. I think, especially with the hippo at the end, I think you're more knowledgeable about this than I am, but you said that the hippo was something to do with rebirth,
childbirth and fertility.
Yeah, so sort of new life and new beginnings. Yeah. I think it definitely points towards it being sort of Purgatory. I mean, that's where sort of Khonshu revived him from before. Khonshu sort of picked him up, saw that he was a good potential avatar, and went from there. So I think Mark is back there, and obviously Stephen's there with him. And then, as you say, yeah, the third personality that Mark almost seems intimidated by.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with pretty much all of that. Obviously, he's probably not dead. Obviously, Arthur Harrow does shoot him twice, and he falls into that water. The water is actually shallow, and then obviously becomes this deep pit of water, which he falls into, which could just be his psyche. Interesting, they've introduced a new god again. Obviously, this is Tauret. I should do a quick bit of research before we start the podcast. This is Tauret, the god of childbirth and fertility. I quite like the CGI. I thought they actually did a pretty good job in terms of what's the word? Like, it could have looked awful. A hippo head human thing could have looked really, really bad. But like with Khonshu, they've done a pretty good job with that so far. I guess kind of helps that obviously they're in the MCU. What was I about to say? But yeah, it's it does make me think that they do know. Well, Mark certainly knows about Jake Lockley. I like the theory that there is a bit more to it than that. I don't think they're dead. They're obviously not dead. It's two more episodes to go. Yeah.
No, they're not dead. I mean, when you see episode 4 of 6, Moon Knight, brand new character to the MCU, you know they're not dead. It's sort of like with the Loki one in episode 4 when he's pruned and you're going, has he died? No, he's not died. He's not dead. He's going to come back. But yeah, like you mentioned about the hippo, obviously they've got the MCU budget, so they're able to pull off some decent looking CGI. It's still a bit of a shock when you see it.
Yeah.
I think they acknowledge that in the episode where sort of Mark and Stephen are very taken aback, and the music cuts everything. You're just looking at this hippo person, and it's like, what the hell?
I love Stephen's scream as well. Stephen's scream was so high pitched.
Yeah. Oscar Isaac's acting as Stephen and then being able to switch so quickly to Mark. I think we've mentioned it several times before, but it really is tremendous. Yeah. And yeah, with the hippo and then the high pitched voice as well, and it just is so out of what you'd so far from what you'd expect. I think it's I think it's a really nice touch. And yeah, as you mentioned, the CGI is obviously always fantastic.
Yeah, no, I didn't expect the or Toweret, whatever her name is, to just be this high pitched female voice. To be honest, and yeah, no, it was Moon Knights. It does surprise you as you go along. I have noticed. I wasn't really expecting that whole bit after the death. I thought maybe like I actually checked, like I wiggled the mouse to see like is this the end of the episode when he got shot? Because I thought they might just leave it at that. But no, they again they kind of surprised and took us down a completely different and thought provoking as the whole show has been. I feel the very thought provoking show.
Yeah, I think they do this well, like all the other Marvel shows. You couldn't really predict the ending at any point. So there's only 2 episodes to go now, but I couldn't tell you what's going to happen.
Yeah,
Like, I assume they'll find a way to defeat or do some deal with Arthur Harrow. Conchi will be freed, that sort of thing. But from here, like, you really have no way of speculating where it could go. I mean, if you did, we'd be here for a very long time because there's so many possibilities they could do with it. I think they've done well. Marvel have done well, or with the other shows. Okay, so you knew in WandaVision that Agatha Harkness was Agnes. I think everybody knew that by the end of episode 1. But they still didn't. You just didn't know about White Vision. You didn't know about the kids just dying at the end, and they've done that very well with all the shows. And it'd be very interesting to see what direction they take it in terms of, are we getting a cameo? Who's it going to be from? Are we going to get Mahershala Ali as Blade? Are we going to get Dane Whitman showing up? That would be fantastic, I think. Or are they just going to go, no, Oscar Isaac's strong enough to carry the show on his own? He'll pop up again in the future, but for now, we're just going to concentrate on him. It'd be very interesting to see what happens.
it would be very interesting to see what happens. Obviously, do make sure you check out our next episode a week today. We will obviously be finishing this off. It's going to be a bit strange when obviously this finishes for us because we won't be waking up 8 o'clock in the morning every Wednesday.
We'll get Wednesday mornings back, mate. Yeah.
But we got obviously Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness to look forward to. So yeah, we've got lots planned, lots to look forward to. And yeah, I can't wait to see where this goes in the next 2 episodes. Apart from that, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, do please leave a like and subscribe if you are new around here. That would help us out massively. Check out our socials. Kind of everything is linked down below. And yeah, Tom and I will probably be seeing you next Wednesday morning for another Moon Knight review. Cheers.